Finally, we got to the point when we can start working on the stopwatch. We're going to position our stopwatch under the select box. And by using this stopwatch, we will be able to measure the time spent on a particular activity that we can choose by using this select box. So let's go ahead and add markup for the stopwatch. Inside of timeline item component, right under base select component, we're going to create div which will contain 3 buttons. Every button in our application is represented by base button component. So we're gonna place in here 3 such components. Also here will be a div which will show the time that we will measure for a particular activity. And then inside of every base button component, we will pass icon components. So the first button will contain icon with the name arrow pass icon. At the same time, we will specify height for this icon, let's say 8 units. The second button will contain an icon with the name pause icon. And the third button will contain an icon called play icon. And then let's just copy class which assigns height and use this class on every icon component. And then we will need to import every icon component. So let's copy over import of icons from constants.js file and paste this import inside of timeline item component. We just have to specify proper icon names in here that we need to import: arrow pass icon, pause icon, and play icon. So in the browser, as we can see, all these icons are displayed. Now we will position them on one line. To do that, we can make wrapper element flexible container by assigning class flex. And then we'll make this flexible container stretch full width. And spacing between all child elements will be 2 units. After this, we're going to move play icon with pause icon to the right corner. But firstly, let's assign a few classes to the element which contains time. We're going to make this element flexible container and make this container occupy all available space in its parent flexible container by using flexGrow class. Child elements will be aligned vertically in the center. We'll round corners a little bit, make background color light gray, horizontal paddings will be 2 units, font monospaced, and the text size will be 3XL. And right after assigning all these classes, we can see the following result. Our stopwatch starts looking as we need to. But even though we use base button component inside of timeline item component, it is not imported in this component yet. So let's write corresponding import statement for a base button component. And now all these buttons will get a proper look of base button component. One of these buttons will have a green color and another will have a yellow color. But we don't have such button types in our project that corresponds to these colors. So let's go to constants.js and declare new constants for new button types. We're going to create button type success and button type warning. And of course, values for these constants will be warning and success. And since we also have to include new button types in button types array, let's add the constants of new button types inside of this array. Now we're gonna have to use these new button types within base button component. So in here, first of all, let's import new constants button type success and button type warning. And just to assign classes for these button types, we need to add one more key which corresponds to new button type inside of type classes object, which contains classes for every button type. So we're going to add 2 more keys which represent our new button types, and for every key, assign corresponding CSS classes. The success button will have a green color, so let's rename this class on green. And the warning button will be yellow color. Let's use class bgyellow500. So now even we have added new button types, we haven't really used those yet. And that is why every button in here looks the same. So let's go back to timeline item component. And we're going to pass prop called type into every base button component with corresponding type to make all these buttons different. So the first button will have type, which corresponds to button type danger constant. In other words, the first button will be red. And now let's copy over this prop and add it to the rest of buttons. But the second button will have button type warning, and the third button's type will be button type success. And of course, after using these constants in this component, we have to import every constant. Let's scroll up and add necessary imports. Here we are using the following constants: button type success, button type warning, and button type danger. And finally, it's time to check result in the browser. And right now, all these buttons have different colors. So our stopwatch looks pretty good now. We'll continue development in the next lesson.